You get the train tickets, get a sleeper car, you know, those are like bunk beds in there. I'm on the top bunk, he's in the bottom bunk. Now, there's a toilet in that little room. It's like you're in a fucking prison cell. And I remember telling the LT, I'm like, LT, don't you drop a deuce in that fucking toilet. You better walk your ass out around to the public toilet around the corner, because this room is way too small to be smelling fucking ass. Hello everybody, Terrence Popp here with another episode, live from the Lair. Alright, so I'm in the Army Reserve at the 404th Civil Affairs Battalion that had just been stood up in Southfield, Michigan, and it came from Utica, New York. Now, the one that was, the colonel that was in charge, technically, was a TPU, which is not a full-time officer. He was, I think he was working as a cop, or he was on long tour orders. His name was Montague. Hispanic guy. All I could say, he was a good dude. I mean, you know, he did what he said he was going to do. There wasn't a lot of bullshit. He just wanted results, which I completely respect. I mean, I'm a results-orientated individual either. He didn't really care about the process. I can't tell you how many times, you know, he would tell me to do shit, and I would be questioning him. He would just be like, "Just get it done. Just get it done." I'm like, "Oh, okay, done deal." And we were really, you know, we were light on personnel, and they had told us that they were going to give us like 18 months. Before we were going to get tasked with anything, and in reality they gave us more like 6, and I think we were there 6 months before we got the alert order that we needed to send a company to Iraq. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. We started recruiting a lot of people. I got a lot of, not a lot, but I got some newbies, like, you know, right out of basic and AIT, they enlisted for civil affairs. I did step up the recruiting, and I went to the 125 infantry. And I remember I went down to the Detroit Light Guard Armory, which is where the 125 was hanging their hat. I think they're still there, I don't know. And I think I put out the word, and I got like an additional 18 to 20 guys interested in coming over. You know, the Michigan National Guard is not really keen on giving up personnel, especially during wartime. So letters had to be written, and feathers were ruffled. And I think the third time I went there, I was invited to leave because they were very upset with me for, you know, pinching all their people. But, you know, that's just the name of the game. These guys, after they've been in the military, you know, 12, 15 fucking years, and they're in E5, and they should be in E7, it's time to put down the rucksack and the rifle and go to where you could get promoted. All right, because it's all fun and games until you retire as a sergeant. And that just sucks. So, I mean, that's what I was doing a lot of the time, doing a lot of recruiting. I mean, Colonel Montague really liked my efforts I was putting in. Basically told me, you know, I told him what I was going to do, and I fucking did it. I didn't give him any fucking excuses. Boom, that's the way it was. So he actually pulled some strings to keep my long tour orders going, which was pretty good. And I put in an official request for an AGR position through the DoD website, which was really not that difficult, and they were really hurting for civil affairs, because that was back when there was a big push to stand up all these civil affairs units, because the Army had shit the bed when we had invaded Iraq, and then we went through and there was no civil affairs to make sure that the cops stayed employed, the water kept running, and all the other horse shit, and whole museums were looted, and it just was fucking very bad. So that's usually the way it goes. If the Army gets caught short doing something, they fucking hit it hard and, you know, make it go to the stratosphere, and then they go, oh wait, well, we need to pull back a little bit. Now I knew that was going to happen down the road, but in 07, 08, I mean, we were swimming in money. Our budget was insane. We had ordered all kinds of shortages on our MTOW equipment, which started to come in. We picked up a supply sergeant, and there was 2 of them, and there was Sergeant First Class E, Sergeant A, and then there was one other female. Her name escapes me at this time, so I'm bad with names. What can I say? So we started getting, filled up with actual personnel, which was cool. And we also got a admin, clerk, Sergeant First Class K, female, and she knew her fucking job when it came to doing paperwork. I mean, she was a wizard, and there was some attitude problems, but it really wasn't nothing I couldn't work with. And they didn't last that long, just in the beginning, and then everything was fine. And that's actually fairly common when soldiers get assigned and to places, and it's far from home. They had to do a lot of fucking horse shit to do the PCS. And when they arrive where they're at, they got a bad attitude for a while until they get, situated, which I totally understand. Even in the AGR program, they PCS you every 3 to 5 years. Usually enlisted get PCS every 5 years if you're AGR. Officers is anywhere from 3 to 5. That was pretty interesting. And let's see. Yes, and First Lieutenant D and I had to take a trip to do USR, of course. And he decides, he's like, Pop, did you ever take a train anywhere? I'm like, nah, man, no. We're going to take a train there this time. I'm like, okay. So we get the train tickets, get a sleeper car. Those are like bunk beds in there. I'm on the top bunk. He's in the bottom bunk. Now, there's a toilet in that little room. It's like you're in a fucking prison cell. And I remember telling the LT, I'm like, LT, don't you drop a deuce in that fucking toilet. You better walk your ass out around to the public toilet around the corner, because this room is way too small to be smelling fucking ass. Don't do it. He just laughed. He's like, all right. But on that trip, I think it was 18 hours, was one of the few times since I was wounded in 04 where I actually slept 6 hours without having to take my sleeping pills, alcohol, Benadryl, and Neurontin. And it was very relaxing. It's actually a good call, Little did I know, down the road, I'd be taking that fucking train twice a month back and forth between Utica and New York in the wintertime to see my kids. But none of those train rides were ever as relaxing because I didn't get a sleeper car. I just, would sit down next to somebody when I got my seat, and then I would act like I have Tourette's, and they would get up and move, and then I would have 2 seats to myself, and then I'd make a nest and go to sleep. But, that's neither here nor there. Let's see. First Lieutenant D was on the move so much. They had him, flying to DC, flying to Utica, flying to, Bragg, Maryland. I mean, he was on the road all the time because he was standing up the unit, and, he was busier than a one-armed well digger. And he'd come back, and then he'd be back like 3 or 4 days to go right on a back-to-back on another fucking trip somewhere for the Army. Well, this had went on for about 2 months. Now, this is before the DTS travel voucher fucking system came in, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but I could see how it was necessary. But this is the old travel voucher kind of thing. So I remember I'm in my fucking office, and the LT calls me over into his office, and he's like, I can't do these travel vouchers. He's like stressing out. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do it for you, sir. Just give me your receipts. Like, literally, he's got, like, this ball of fucking receipts. There's no rhyme, no reason. It's like they were bald and, like, this fucking, it was insane. He's like, he throws them down on the desk, pulls out his orders. There's like 8 or 9 of those, and if I can just go figure it out, So I go next door, and I spend pretty much that entire day, and I did like 8 travel vouchers for him. And I kept noticing this pattern, that he would go to the bar and spend $80 on booze. And I remember I went over to him, I'm like, sir, we got a discrepancy here in this report. It says you here at the Sky Cafe, there's a bar bill for $88. We really can't put that in the travel voucher. I could do the meal and like 1 drink maybe, but this is a separate issue, and it's after 10 o'clock. You know, what's going on there? He's like, oh yeah, you know, I was trying to impress these women. I'm like, oh, all right. So, you're suffering from LOP, sir. He's like, Sergeant Popp, what is LOP? Sir, it stands for lack of pussy. All right. Now, to make everything cheaper, perhaps you should find a piece closer to home, or perhaps, you know, import something to hang out with, because you're going to go broke here running up your bar bills and going crazy chasing, you know, trim. So let's just dial this down from like 10 to like maybe 2, and everything will work out. So the next morning, you know, I faxed everything over, all of his travel vouchers, all the copies of the receipts and everything, and then I think he got one hefty fucking a check, you know, for all of the traveling that he'd been doing. He was able to pay down some of his credit card debt, which is relatively high, but it's neither here nor there. So gentlemen, when you're younger than 34 and you're thinking with a little head, not only is it painful for your heart and head, but it's crushing for your wallet. So, you know, I got him hooked up. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. You can't believe, I mean, the equipment we were getting, we were getting like, you know, camera kits, wiring kits, you know, mechanics toolbox, general toolbox, electrician's toolbox. I mean, it was crazy. We literally were stacking pallets that we didn't even unpack in the Butler building out back. I remember we had all this shit, and then right before I PCS'd out of there, the Army basically took it all back, and it got sold at DRMO. It hadn't even been used. So that, I mean, you want to talk about a huge waste of money. That's it right there. All right, so we got that. We got Montague with the receipt unfucking train trip. Yeah. Sergeant First Class E and Sergeant A. Wow. Those are some good times. SFCE, colored soldier on the older side. He was in his late 40s. Was married to a woman with special needs who was less than nice to him. She treated him like absolute shit, and she had no problem treating him like shit and talking down to him anywhere she was. And I don't know how we put up with that. Sergeant A, I believe, came from Texas. You know, he's a good guy. I can't really complain. You know, he had some adjustment problems in the beginning. One of the things I did while I was there to break up the monotony and kind of help with the morale a little bit, I used to do practical jokes. And this one just fell right into my lap. Like literally, I go into the toilet, I sit down on the throne to drop a deuce. I look over and oh, there is a cell phone right there. I pick it up, open it. Oh, it's Sergeant A's cell phone. So what do? I immediately start texting Sergeant First Class E. Like, oh, I think you're so attractive. I love your bubble butt. You're so sexy. Can we go out? Send. What? No answer? Come on, send. I did that for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then finally I hear Sergeant First Class E from a couple rooms down. He's like, Sergeant A, where your phone at? Somebody's got your phone. And I hear him like run by and then down the stairs because we're on the 2nd floor. And I like finish up what I'm doing, complete the paperwork, shut the phone, put it right back where I found it, go back to my office. So he found his phone like 10 minutes later. And he's like, I could hear him in the hallway. He's like, I bet you that was Popp that did that. God damn it. Look, I was just fucking with you, sorry. Yeah. It's good times, man, good times. Another thing I would do to Sergeant First Class E is he would come in the morning for the morning meetings, and he'd always be eating the sticky bun. And I remember he'd sit down, and I'd be like, hey, Sergeant E, you might as well just lick and stick that sticky bun right on your ass, because that's exactly where it's going. He would laugh, and he'd be like, yeah, but it'll be good sticking there, and he would eat it. And there was a lot of over political correctness, and you know, people were getting upset and stuff, and I thought it was ridiculous. This next one is pretty funny. A lot of the guys from the 425, I had been their first sergeant in Iraq, so they felt more than comfortable being around me because we went to war together. They're war brothers to me. Well, I was in one office, and in that office was pretty bare. I had one of those tear-off calendars on my fucking desk. Well, I didn't know this, but one of the guys had basically randomly wrote penises in there and then left it on the desk. Well, I got moved to another office because I was going to fall in on the S2 position, which is security manager. And I just left the calendar on the desk. I didn't bring it in there. I don't give a fuck about it. I usually keep a calendar, you know, either on my desk or in a separate book off to the side. Well, we got this female lieutenant, first lieutenant, I think her Brandy. She was pretty high-strung. It just, I don't know. I can't say she was worthless, because she wasn't, but she had some issues going on with her brain pan, which made working with her and being around her very difficult. Gentlemen, especially other servicemen who served with women, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, she took my old office, and a couple days later, she had, you know, tore off one of the calendar pages, and lo and behold, there's a penis drawn right there. So she picks it up, comes right in my office, and starts just fucking lambasting me. She's like, who did this? Did you do this? Who did this? You know, and I didn't really know who did it, but I had a good suspicion who did it. And even if I knew who it was, I wasn't going to narc him out, because that's fucked up. I don't do that. So I just told her, like, ma'am, I apologize. It will never happen again. And can we just leave it at that? Well, it made it all the way up the fucking chain at KPOC, and then, you know, on our monthly call with, I think it was the general, you know, he had talked about it. You know, he didn't say any particular location by name, but I was just like, fucking A, this is so stupid. God, it was insane. But, I don't know. I didn't care for that, and I thought it was pretty unprofessional. I mean, and she tried to strong arm me by, you know, are we going to have a problem, Sergeant Popp? And I'm like, I don't have any problem. I don't want a problem. And ma'am, rest assured, you don't want a problem with me. Yeah, that went over well too, because they're like, did you threaten her? I'm like, no. You know, I don't threaten chicks. I just tell them the deal. Yeah, so I got a pretty strict talking to. And then we had a captain show up, Captain Z. Great guy. He's from Buffalo, New York. Just got on the AGR program. He had a big nose. He liked the Russians. He liked the Polish army because his relatives are from Poland. And in fact, for one of my birthdays, he gave me a copy of Mein Kampf, which I still have it. You know, I haven't read it, but, you know, what are you going to do? And he was a stickler for the rules. And he would counsel you, if you fucked up, which is what you're supposed to do. So it's not bad. But I can remember he'd call me in my office. He'd be like, hey, I saw Popp come to my office. And I'd be like, sir, do I need to have a pen or not? He goes, you better bring a pen. So I literally show up at his door, knock on there, holding the pen like this, walk in, stand at attention, and I sign this, sign that, and then I'd leave. He would give me a copy later on in the day. But he was pretty cool about it because, when he was there, like when he first got there to the next fiscal year, which is the end of October, beginning of November, he basically would walk into my office with the file of the counselings I had signed and throw them on the desk and just go, all right, it's a new year, start off new. And that was it. And I never really got dinged for any of the stuff. I think he was just doing it to cover his own ass, which I fully understand and condone. But, some guys would get really upset when he would counsel them, and I never lost my cool. I always laughed it off, and I think that attitude saved me most of the time in K-Poc, because later on down the road, I had to actually go to war with one of the battalion commanders, and that was bad. Montague left. He got I think he went to the Pentagon, and then we got a Colonel Woods, which he was from New York. He's a good guy. I can't say much about the guy. I didn't see him too much, but under his command, everything seemed to be going pretty good up until Major Waldorf committed suicide, and they had basically blamed it all on Colonel Woods, and he got a letter of reprimand, and that fucked up his career. So I thought that was pretty shitty, because there's really nobody could do anything about it. We couldn't. I think he just got back from Afghanistan, and it just fucking sucked. That was rough. I got earmarked to. I ran Waldorf's entire funeral. Everything. I was the NCOIC, which is the non-commissioned officer in charge. And I'd personally known Waldorf because when he was in the 425, he was there for almost a year. I was his platoon sergeant. He was the LT for 3rd Platoon. And, we froze, we starved, we walked through the woods, we jumped, we did all the infantry hoa shit. I got him a glowing OER because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get the officers above you, make them look good. And it worked out well for him, I thought, until that happened. But it is what it is. And if you saw the 100 subscriber episode, that whole story. I'm not going to say it again here. All right, so we are now somewhere towards the end of 2008, and that's it for me. Take it easy, gentlemen.